welcome to the International Gaming Standard Association Conversations. The GSA conversations are just that, conversations between various gaming industry professionals discussing a specific topic. They're intended to be informative and to generate questions. I'm Peter de Raad, IGSA's president, and today we have with us Mark Pace, managing director of GSA Europe. Today's conversation topic is a short introduction of one of GSA's most important standards, the Game-to-System or G2S standard. Separately, GSA will also be hosting a 1-hour Zoom session with Q&A on how GSA's Game-to-System standard benefits the industry. But for now, let's discuss why would I want G2S in my jurisdiction. Mark, in a previous conversation, we talked about a few things related to what G2S is and about how to implement it. But that conversation was mostly from an operator's perspective. I thought we talk a little bit about why regulators would want to have G2S in their jurisdiction. What do you think?
Yeah, I think that's a great topic, and there's lots of stuff that we can talk about.
Very true. And perhaps we can talk about how G2S empowers regulators to keep gaming fair by truly understanding what software is being used for gaming purposes and how they can verify that the software hasn't been hacked.
Yeah, I think that's a good place to start. In fact, one of the things I'd like to talk about actually benefits both regulators and operators.
Oh, that sounds good.
So since that's okay, during our last conversation, I mentioned one of the differences between G2S and SAS.
Yeah, is that when you said, yeah, that's when you said when SAS does not encrypt data, right? But G2S encrypts it right out of the slot machine?
Right. There's another difference that I think is pretty important and comes into play when software is periodically revoked or obsoleted.
What does that mean exactly?
All right, well, so periodically something is discovered within gaming software that causes regulators to revoke that particular version. Typically, it's some sort of a bug. The software supplier will, provide a new version. They'll submit it for testing. It goes through the testing, and if it's deemed to fix the issue, it's approved to replace the prior version. At that point, the regulators give the operators some amount of time to replace the revoked software.
So I'd imagine there is going to be repercussions if operators are found to still be using that revoked software after that time period has expired, right?
Yes, for revoked software. But in addition to that, sometimes software is deemed to have been obsoleted. So for example, take bill validator software. Yep. Sometimes there's been an update to detect some new counterfeit bill. The older software is obsoleted and must be replaced with the new version.
But I would imagine, Mark, that the same software replacement process applies.
Yeah. Now the issue with replacing software is actually twofold. One is knowing which slot machines are using what version, and the other is tracking which ones have been updated.
But doesn't the CMS provide that data?
Well, maybe, but if we dig into that a bit, as we discussed previously, right, the CMS talks to the SMIB that's inside each slot machine using some communication language. Mm-hmm. It's the SMIB that talks to the slot machine using SAS. Now, SAS has no way to provide what version of operating system, game theme software, bill validator, or printer firmware is being used in the slot machine. So while the information could very well be in the CMS, it would have been manually entered and not provided directly from the slot machine, which is the source. So
that information really might not be 100% accurate.
Right, but actually, that's not potentially the biggest issue. If you think about the tracking of which slot machine has had its software updated, all of that is going to be a manual process. Slot techs upgrading software, working off, let's say, a list and keeping track of which was done and when and what and where,
So it's once again the same thing, right? It's humans being manually tracking stuff.
Yeah, and as conscientious as any human is, well, at the end of the day, we're human and stuff happens.
But okay, then explain, how does GSA help with the situation?
All right, so G2S allows a system to subscribe to a full software and firmware inventory of the slot machine. Think of that as its personality. Now, no more manual entry to figure out, what is running what. No more relying on spreadsheets to figure out, which were upgraded. All you have to do is look at the data the slot machine sends you.
Well, I can't imagine being in the position of any operator who has, let's say, thousands of slot machines on his floor. And then just to know for sure if all my software and firmware is valid, right, and has been updated to accept money. So the ability to get software inventory with a single press of a button helps operators because they know exactly what is running, and it helps regulators because they know if any revoked software is still being used.
Yeah, that's right. And so as you said in the intro, it helps regulators keep gaming fair by ensuring there's no revoked software which might be buggy is being used. And I guess you could say it also helps regulators keep gaming free of crime if it ensures that only like the latest bill validated software is being used. So capable of rejecting all known counterfeits.
I like that.
Now, knowing what version of software is being used is not exactly the same as knowing that that software is an authentic copy of the approved software.
Authentic copy? You mean not hacked?
Well, I guess, but what I really mean is that, as you know, gaming suppliers send their software to regulators and approved third-party labs for testing.
Mm-hmm.
Once the testing is done and the software is deemed compliant, the regulators approve the software for use. Now, from that point on, the supplier makes copies of that approved software, and it's those copies that get distributed to the operators.
Okay, I get it. It's not necessarily hacked, but how do they know that the software is an exact copy?
Yeah. Now, they know, in theory, because when the testing is done, a hash value of the software is created and included in the approval letter. The hash value is calculated down at the bit level so that changing the slightest thing, even for example, one letter in the code or a comma, would result in a different value.
So, Mark, in that case, comparing the hash value on the approval letter with the hash value of the software being used, if they match, everything is okay.
Yeah, that's the idea. Now, the problem lies in how you get the hash value from the software being used.
But that's easy. You use one of the other GSA standards. It's called the Game Authentication Terminal standard.
Sure. Yeah, get is one option. Others exist as well, such as GLI's Verify Plus.
Oh, I hear about coming. Tell me.
Yeah, there is, but these methods require you to physically connect to the device running the software, or in some cases, taking the software media actually out.
Well, that's not very efficient, Mark. I mean, I can't imagine actually doing that. Say you got a casino floor with 1,000 slot machines, opening every single one at a time, standing there to calculate hash values. That would take days.
Yeah, but once again, G2S comes to the rescue.
Explain how.
All right. Well, so remember how we said that G2S allows multiple host systems to connect to a slot machine or server? Like a printer in an office connected to multiple computers over the network?
Yes.
Okay. Well, so G2S has the GATT capability built into it. So regulators can have another system that sends GATT requests connected to the slot machines. The system could send a message to calculate the GATT hash value to either a single slot machine or to multiple slot machines over the network. Regulators can do that from their office. No need to be physically at the gaming device that they're actually testing.
Well, that's pretty significant. I mean, especially with the virus and social distancing that's going on. I mean, it helps regulators keep their staff safe by minimizing the amount of time they have to spend touching slot machines.
That's very true. And keep in mind that operators don't have to install a wired network. They don't have to replace all the slot machines. And as we discussed, they do not have to replace their CMS.
Yeah, you're right. We discussed that. So all they have to do is to ask their slot machine supplier to provide them with an OS that supports both SATs and G2S. There may be some slot machines that may have to be replaced, but those replacements could be phased in over time.
Exactly. Using G2S helps the regulators verify that the software running is the right version and that it is authentic, and do so in a much more efficient and safe manner. But actually there's more.
More?
Yeah, so one more thing that more and more regulators are wanting to implement is what they call a monitoring system that is completely independent of the CMS. They really want to be able to get gaming activity data and events directly from the source, the slot machines. By the way, this conversation is also happening in the online space, but there the discussion is about regulatory reporting directly from the operators' platforms and content provider systems.
But the GSA regulatory reporting interface would be used for the online gaming side, right?
Right, RRI would do that. So would the online gambling reporting, or OGR standard, that I've been working on in Europe. OGR is sort of a subset of GSA's RRI, OGR is focused only on online gaming, but RRI does much more.
Well, that's some great work, Mark, that you've been doing, especially leading the SEND project in Europe there. But getting back to G2S, how would that monitoring system work?
Well, so the system that regulators use to run G2S GAT could also, for example, subscribe to the slot machines, meters, and events, and provide that data directly to them. Remember, we said that the CMS could continue to connect to the serial port, and G2S systems could connect to the Ethernet port.
Yep. That makes a lot of sense. I mean, separate system, one doesn't impact the other.
That's exactly right.
Okay, Mark, so to summarize this conversation, G2S can be of value to regulators by helping them verify that only approved versions of softwares are being used. Mm-hmm. It also helps them verify that the software is an exact copy of what was approved by using a system that executes GAT remotely on the floor. This helps keep regulatory staff safe by minimizing touching slot machines and deliver efficiencies for eliminating having to run GAT one machine at a time. And finally, G2S, due to its network and multi-host capabilities, would allow that same system to collect meter and event information, right? Providing regulators with a monitoring system functionality.
That's a great summary.
Oh, great, Mark. This was an informative conversation. And to our audience, thank you for listening. Please send us your questions and comments by contacting us. Information on doing so you can find on our website, igsa.org. And until the next conversation, thank you.